Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Outliers YouTube channel with your host
Kathleen Antrim.
and DP Lyle. And today we're going to get to know Hank Phillippi Ryan.
Welcome, Hank. I just want to let everybody know Hank is a USA Today bestselling author. She has won oodles of awards for her writing, on top of having won many Emmys for her investigative reporting and that part of her newscaster life. Welcome, Hank. So great to have you.
Thank you. So nice to see you all. It is absolutely torrentially pouring in Boston. Power is out all over Massachusetts on this particular day. So if you see my internet wavering, that's what it is.
Yeah. Well,
I'm
hopefully you
so
won't go
glad
dark in the middle of it.
Well, that's the suspense. We write suspense, right? So
Exactly.
will Hank go dark? That's suspense.
Absolutely. So you and I have known each other many years, but we've really never sat down and really chatted. So where did you grow up and what was your childhood like?
Oh my golly, I grew up in really rural Indiana.
Okay.
So rural that you couldn't see another house from our house. There was no one. And my sister and I used to ride our ponies to the library to get books.
Oh, I love it.
Girl, I know. We would go to the library and tie up the ponies to the hitching post. It was Zionsville, Indiana, and fill up our saddlebags with books and then read up in the hayloft of the barn behind our house. So I had a really solitary, book-filled childhood. I think my parents were worried about it at the time, but it's turned out really to serve me well. I mean, in the hayloft is where I read Nancy Drew and Sherlock.
Oh my gosh.
And all the wonderful Golden Age mysteries, Nio Marsh and Josephine Tay and Marjorie Allingham and Dorothy Sayers. And I think I think that in the hayloft, thinking about it now, is when I really fell in love with mysteries, reading Agatha Christie. When I read Murder on the Orient Express, remember?
Yeah.
And you think, how did she do that? I mean, all the clues are there. And the ending is just such a surprise, but it shouldn't have been. And I sort of started learning about storytelling and characterization and plotting and clues. I was 13, and I don't know whether I recognized that that's what I was thinking about, but how a really smart writer could lure a reader in with a great story and have them turning the pages as fast as they possibly could. And then in the end, be surprised and delighted. That is such a power to do that. That is such a skill to do that. And that's the time that at that age, I thought, maybe I'll be a mystery writer. But then I thought, maybe I should be a detective. Maybe I thought it would be cooler to be Poirot than to write about Poirot. So that upbringing was sort of weird, not cityfied, not urban, but very, very rural and very, very solitary.
Did the barn have a tin roof?
The barn did not have a tin roof.
Because I love rain on a tin roof. I grew up in a hayloft also.
Yeah,
that would have been great. I remember, the smell of hay and straw and wood and horses and being outside it was a wonderful upbringing. I wouldn't have probably chosen it. I kept telling my mother that I was actually a princess. And when my real family came to find me, they would be sorry that they had treated me so badly. I was making up stories all the time.
So it sounds like your childhood really did shape your career in more than one way, quite frankly. I mean, you ended up writing, but you also really, as an investigative reporter, you kind of became Poirot too.
Yes, that's exactly right. I think it's so funny that I turned out to be an investigative reporter like a detective, and then to write crime fiction much, much later in life as well. I think I realized that I should do something. Well, when I was 14, this is so strange. When I was 14, I was such a bookish, nerdy, friendless little girl. I was pitiful. I was absolutely no friends, no date, no anything. My only friends were characters in novels. And I don't know if they have these now, but they had superlatives like best dressed, most likely to succeed. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
I didn't get voted any of those. I got voted when I was 14. I got voted most individual. You don't want that at age 14.
Oh, you
right?
do. Most
You just wanna be
individual.
like, please
I'm
just
not even
make
sure
me-
what that means.
Well, I knew what that, I mean, I wanted to just be like everybody else, like every
Right.
14-year-old wants to be like everybody else. But honestly, I knew what that meant. It meant, most unlike the rest of us, and most
Oh.
misfits, and most we don't want to sit with you at lunch. They put my picture in the school paper upside down to show how weird I was.
Oh,
I have
goodness.
it. Sadly, I have it. But the point of this was,
That's so hurtful.
it was. And that's
Mhm.
exactly the point. Exactly what I'm trying to say is that I went to my mom and I was sobbing, doomed as only a 14-year-old girl can be doomed. My life is ruined. And I said, this isn't fair. This just isn't fair. They can't do this to me. The world is
Right.
just not fair. And after I got finished sobbing, my mom, and comforted me as moms do, she took me aside and said, listen, kiddo, the world isn't fair. You're griping about the world not being fair. The world isn't fair, she said, and you're just going to have to get used to it. And I remember, and I was 14, I remember thinking, why? Why do I have to get used to it? Why can't
Right.
I do something to change it? Why can't I make a difference? Why can't I stand up for the little guy? Like nobody stood up for me. And I really think that at that moment, I vowed that I was going to make something of my life and leave a legacy and make a mark or whatever it was in my little 14-year-old head. And I think that's why I, for 43 years, have been a reporter, changing laws and changing lives, that kind of thing, to make the world a little bit more fair. And I really think that happened when I was 14.
Wow, that's really impressive. And those are tough years anyway, but that sounds particularly hurtful and really a tough time. I do think that, and if you agree, that the things like that we go through really does help to shape us, and certainly help to shape your career. Have you gone back to a reunion of sorts?
That's such a great question. I have to say I did. I think it was my 40th reunion. It might have been my
Awesome.
50th reunion. I don't know. And I was really, well, the first thing that happened was, so I got all dressed up. I'm going to show these people,
Oh,
they
yeah.
knew about. And I opened the door to the room where the party was. And I looked at everyone and I remember thinking, oh, I'm in the wrong place. These are all somebody's parents. Because I was expecting to see Becky and Susie, like they were when they were 17.
Exactly.
And it really hit me. I mean, I really had to compose myself for a second. And then I can tell you, because it's just you, I go in and everybody's like, oh, you're so fabulous. You're so great. Congratulations on everything. We always knew you'd turn out well. And I thought, you did not, and where were you when I needed a date for the prom, right?
Yeah. No
Right,
thanks
right,
to
right.
you. Right.
Yeah.
So I think high school, the formative years of high school, I've met so many authors who had a difficult high school, who sort of
Mhm.
relied on books, relied on reading, relied on knowledge, relied on the guidance of a marvelous teacher. How many English teachers have we all had who
Mhm.
changed our lives? And I think, is it possible that an unhappy high school career leads to being a successful adult? It's a thought. It's a theory.
Well, and there is a thing where people say that, be nice to nerds because they're going to end up being your boss someday.
Right.
And I
Exactly.
think it's true. I
Especially in
really
the tech
do.
world. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
So in your career as a reporter and all that, what are some of the most satisfying situations that your reporting changed things, or that you got involved in, that are enlightened, shone light on something? What are there's something that really stands out? You say, wow, this was cool.
Well, I've been a television reporter for 43
Right.
years. And I've wired myself with hidden cameras and confronted corrupt politicians and chased down criminals and gone undercover and in disguise. And my team and I have really made a lot of difference in people's lives, which I'm very passionate about that. We found significant, really disturbing problems in the state's 911 system, the emergency response system,
wow.
that were sending emergency responders, police and firefighters to the wrong address. thousands of times a year in Massachusetts,
Wow.
because
Oh, my
when we found out
goodness.
why that was happening and got the
Yeah.
system changed, it doesn't work the same way now, the correction of errors in the 911 system.
Oh, thank
Thousands of
goodness.
times a year,
Boy, that's
police and firefighters were going to the wrong address because the
Because
system
that's lives.
messed
I
up.
mean,
that's huge. That's
Oh,
huge.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
we don't have that problem in Massachusetts anymore. We found firehouses, the places where firefighters live and work, in such terrible condition, the firehouses, that
Yeah.
they wouldn't pass fire inspection. The firehouses were not up to code. So we convinced the legislature to appropriate millions of dollars to rebuild and rehab the firehouses. And we
Yeah.
found so many devastating problems in the home improvement contracting and mortgage lending industries that 3 new laws were passed to prohibit the activities that we had uncovered. And we actually
Wow.
got people's homes out of foreclosure. I got people's homes returned to them, people who had been unfairly
Oh, my
foreclosed.
goodness.
And, and in other stories, we counted it up, millions of dollars in refunds and restitution for consumers who had been wronged. So we've done it, we've worked on it, and so many wonderful other stories. To be an investigative reporter, you have to be cynical a little bit,
Right.
curious quite a bit, and a little bit confident that we'll be able to know where to look to discover the answers. I remember my first investigative story, and it was so pivotal. We had heard that there were what's called trihalomethanes. You both probably know about this, THMs, which are carcinogens in the water in a town in Massachusetts.
Oh,
And
wow.
I remember, golly, I must have been, I don't know how old I was, but so I go to the town water supply chairman. And I said, I'm here to talk with you about the THMs in the water in your town. And he said, okay, I'm happy to talk about that. We have no evidence, he says, we have no evidence of THMs in the water in our town. So I said, okay, have you ever looked for it? Have you ever tested for it? And he's like, no. So he was saying we have no evidence of it, which is
Right.
true, because they'd never looked.
Right.
And catching him, as I can still feel my brain just thinking, wait a minute, that's a very carefully stated thing.
Right.
Saying, why would you say it that way? And it's because they had never looked for it. And from that moment, I was just galvanized about asking questions and creating questions and listening to what people said and figuring out what they really meant. I mean, and isn't it a lesson from the standpoint of being an author? Isn't that a lesson in point of view?
Oh,
I
absolutely.
wanted one thing,
Absolutely.
and he wanted something else.
Right.
And it's so all those years as a reporter really taught me about how people think and people's motivations, conflict, desire. How far would you go to get what you want? What is meant by truth? What is meant by lying? What's fair in the world? And what's our responsibility as a reporter and as a journalist and as an author to decide what truth is?
Sure.
And the true truth, or the emotional truth, or the political truth, or the moral truth, or the legal truth. This is what we write about, and this is what my years of reporting have really enlightened me about to look for.
Did any of your sneaking around and wiretapping people and wearing disguises get you in a situation where you thought, oh my God, what am I doing here? And how do I find the back door?
Oh yeah.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
I remember going undercover in a cult church on Cape Cod.
Oh Lord.
Wow.
And we had heard that this cult church was sort of luring in vulnerable people and sort of brainwashing them to take their money, as cult churches.
Sure.
So, I dressed up in a sort of vulnerable looking outfit. I mean, about going undercover. The key of going undercover is to be invisible.
Right.
To be as dowdy and
plain.
Unremarkable, plain,
Right.
exactly. Dowdy and plain and unremarkable as you possibly can. And you could have, I can talk to you like this, or I can talk to you like this. I can be small.
Right.
So you be small and you go in. So, but really, really quickly. So back in the day that this was happening, today, hidden cameras are just invisible. And you all know this. The hidden cameras are. And I could be wearing one right now. You would never know. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not. I mean, but then hidden cameras were just like a handy cam, you know, tourist cam, we call
Oh,
it.
yeah.
And you would get a purse, a shoulder bag, and cut a hole in the side of the shoulder bag and push the lens of the camera through that, and then turn it on, and then carry the bag like a purse with a scarf wrapped around the handle, and the fluttering ends of the scarf would cover the lens. And then when you move the scarf, the lens would be open and you could video.
Sure.
So you could see, you know, you're shooting by moving the scarf, not shooting, and then not shooting.
Yeah.
And so I had this down pretty well. And you could always tell when I was in a dangerous situation by how many pictures of the scarf I had, because I was too afraid to move it from the lens because somebody would see it. So I'm in this cult church, lots of people in this building on the Cape. And, you know, I'm shooting, and I honestly will tell you that during this time, I was thinking about what I was going to wear to the Emmys, because this was going to be such a good story.
I love it.
Don't ever think about anything else but your job when you're undercover.
Focus. Yeah.
Focus. So at some point, and you know, they're serving lemonade, and I'm trying to look vulnerable, but not too vulnerable, because I'm not quite sure how brainwashing works, and I didn't want to be brainwashed. And I'm shooting, and a guy came up to me and said, taps me on the shoulder and says, "What's that in your purse?" So I thought, I'm caught. You know, I'm doomed. I'm done. So I thought, what am I going to do? So I stood up really straight, and I said to him, "You are making me very uncomfortable with your questions. Am I going to have to report you to someone?" And he's like, no, that's all right. That's all right. Never mind. Okay, bye. And I just hightailed it. Out of the place. So that's, you know, that's always good. Turn it on them, you know, make it be their
Right.
fault.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And so, well, we still did win an Emmy for that story, but I was terrified, I have to say, because I mean, it isn't illegal to secretly tape someone in Massachusetts as long as there's no sound. So I didn't have sound. So I wasn't doing anything illegal. But there's a line between illegal and sort of unwelcome. And
Oh, yeah.
I would not
Right.
have been welcome in that place. And I wasn't really quite sure how I would have handled it. If I would have gotten caught, it would have not been fun.
And how they would have reacted. I mean, you just don't know.
Yeah, you just don't know. You just don't know.
Yeah. Wow.
But you got to be an actor to get undercover, basically, is what you're saying. Absolutely.
I think it's about, you know, you're about 95% who you're pretending to be,
Right.
and 5% remembering who you really are. Because you're so right, Doug. You really have to act like you're not acting.
Yeah.
If I can put it
Right.
that way.
Yeah. No, you also work behind the scenes in the Senate.
I did. I worked on the Administrative Practice and Procedure Subcommittee of the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Oh my gosh. So, I mean, that can make you a little cynical too. I can speak from experience a little bit there, but.
Well, I have to tell you, I worked in Washington, D.C. during the Watergate era. And I worked on Capitol Hill, as you said, in the US Senate. And I worked at Rolling Stone magazine for a couple of years in Washington, D.C. as well. And wow, I mean, I was in my early 20s, and wow, I learned how the government works and who does what and who knows who. And I mean, I was one of those people who sat behind the senators in Senate hearings and handed them the notes about what to say. I saw how power works. I saw how power works. I saw how the Senate worked. I saw the deal making and the behind the scenes, and how much is beneath the surface of the government, a shallow little level on the top. It taught me how to find out anything. That was one of the most educational careers I've ever had working in.
Oh, no doubt.
What was it? Mark Twain said, "You don't need to know how either sausages or laws are made." Yeah. Yeah. And that's it right there.
And I'd take the sausage over the laws.
Yeah.
And I worked with Hunter Thompson.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, he was great. I mean, I loved him. I know he had this mystique of being brusque and crazy, and he was a little bit, but in real life, he was gentle and lovely and smart and fun and enthusiastic and generous and wonderful. But what he taught me about writing, and I didn't realize this until I started being an author, is that his whole theory of writing is just go for it. Just use your own voice, be brave, be tough, try anything, see what happens. You can always fix it. You can always change it. But that the power of our words comes from who we are and what our voice is and how we present things. And he really made me brave about writing. That was a real joy. It was a real joy to work with him.
Wow, I mean, what a gift. That's amazing. Absolutely
He also
amazing.
taught me how to, and don't try this at home, Hunter also taught me how to inhale lighter fluid and breathe in lighter fluid and then blow it out and light it so it looked like you were breathing fire.
Oh my God.
No, don't do that at home.
Don't do that with your hair
Don't do that
down.
at home.
He taught me how to do it. He could do it perfectly. He could do it perfectly.
Oh my
But
God.
I never actually tried it. No, you're so right, Kathy. I was worried.
I'm just putting my hair back just thinking about it.
Never a dull moment. Never a dull moment.
Well, tell us about your new book.
Oh, the new book. Well, there's sort of 3 new books. My current book, The House Guest, which is out right now, is cat. My books are all cat. Oh, that's so. Look at that. The House Guest. Look at that. I love that.
Beautiful cover.
Love the cover. Love the cover.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, can you see, I know you can, how they captured that swimming pool in her sunglasses?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
2 empty chairs. And that's what this book is about. It's about greed, divorce, betrayal, female empowerment, and revenge. And I've got the idea for this novel from a woman who was a pal of mine, who was smart and worldly and wise, and she had a terrific professional job. She was a big deal. And she was married to a guy who was a big deal, smart, worldly, professional, good guy, big deal. And every morning they would have breakfast together and she'd say, I'm off to the office, honey. See you later. And he'd say, oh, that's great, honey. I'm off to the office too. And that all went fine for about 7 years until the police showed up at their door. And it turned out the husband had never gone to work a day in his life, that there was no job, that he had no office, that it was completely made up, and that he had stayed home every day at his desk at home, trafficking in pornography. Now, my book is
Oh my gosh, because I was
not
thinking
about pornography, and it never will be. But the key is she didn't know. This wife did not know what her husband was really doing.
Right.
And it got me thinking about, how well do we know the people who are on the pillow next to us?
Yeah.
And this was during the pandemic when I was writing this. And my husband is a criminal defense attorney. And he commandeered the breakfast room for his law office. And I'm here in this study writing 2 rooms away. And I started thinking, I know what lawyers do, but what's he really doing in there all, for 8 hours a day? And I wondered, could he be doing something nefarious and hiding it from me?
Mhm.
I thought, no, I would know. I would totally know. And then I thought, could I hide something from him? He thinks I'm here writing thrillers. Well, what
Right.
if I'm not? What if I'm doing something else? Could I hide something from him? And I thought, sure, I totally could hide something from him.
Mhm.
So that's where the spark came for this story. How easy is it to lie? How easy is it to deceive someone? Could the person you think is your best friend be doing something really horrible? And that is what The House Guest is. It's a cat and mouse thriller, 2 smart women facing off in a high-stakes psychological cat and mouse game to prove their truth
Cool.
about a devastating betrayal. But
I
which
love
is
it.
the cat and which woman is the mouse? All my books are which woman is the cat and which woman is the mouse. So
Oh
Great
my God.
analogy.
The House
Great
Guest.
analogy. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. That's what makes them page turners.
Well,
I love psychological thrillers.
Well, I do too, because somebody told me a million years ago, it might have been one of you, to write the kind of book you love to read.
Mhm.
And so I don't like graphic violence in books, so I just don't put
Right.
that in. I don't like graphic sex in books, so I just don't put that in. I don't like superly inappropriate language, so I just don't put that in. But I do like gaslighting and mind games, and deception and lying, and a little bit of murder. And
Just a little.
little bit of murder. And that's what my books are. I want you to miss your stop on the subway because you just can't wait to
Right.
That's my whole goal with my book.
Yeah, that's the biggest compliment, right?
It is. When somebody says, I've stayed up all night reading your book, or I missed my stop on the T.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
That's really great.
yeah, for sure.
So tell us about this.
yeah,
This one's coming. This one's coming in February, right?
It's coming in February, and I am so excited about One Wrong Word. You know, as a reporter and as a journalist, I have worked so long in the world of spin, and I understand how one wrong word can really ruin someone's life. Lies and gossip and rumors, and also there are people who form how other people think, who try to create a reality for people. My main character in One Wrong Word is a crisis management expert. And she is a crisis management expert who is trying to solve a crisis of her own. She has been unfairly accused of having an affair with a client. She would never do that. And yet, that is what the gossip is. And she is about to lose her job over it. She has one hope of redemption, and that is to take one last client and help a needy family get back on their feet. And by needy, I mean the husband in the family has been acquitted in a vehicular homicide. But no matter what the jury said, the court of public opinion thinks he's guilty, he's rich, he's connected, he must have gotten off by twisting someone's arm.
right. Yeah.
And he's being vilified. His wife is being vilified by the public, and their two adorable children are being shunned and made fun of. So it is Arden's job to get their lives back together, to rehabilitate this family's reputation. Problem is, she begins to wonder if she might be rehabilitating a murderer. And that is fun.
Wow. Oh,
Wow.
that's a nice twist.
Can't wait till February. Yeah.
I
I'm
know.
really excited about
February's
it.
still a little ways away.
It's like Scandal meets Suits. It was really fun to write and really surprising. You know, I don't use an outline, so I don't know what's going to happen until I write the next word or the next paragraph or the next scene. So when people say, wow, the twist in One Wrong Word, you really surprised me. I'm like, yeah, wasn't that a surprise? Talk about a surprise. Every surprise along the way is a surprise to me. And I remember Sue Grafton calling that the magic. And I know you two have had that too. The idea that we are creating these worlds that didn't exist before, and that the characters and the stories take turns that surprise us. No matter if you outline or if you pants, things happen that are unexpected. And that is one of the joys of writing to me, is that I never know what's going to happen. And I absolutely love that.
So
I agree.
basically, you're your own
That's
first
the
reader.
joy of writing, actually.
Yeah.
That's really it. The little
Yeah.
surprises that hit you in the face. Like, I should have thought of this before, but I'm glad I thought of it now. Exactly.
Yes, and when something works that you didn't plan,
Right.
have you had this, you all things come together and you think, oh, that's what that was.
This is exactly
Right.
why I don't
Yes.
exactly why I don't outline anymore. I outlined my first maybe 10 books, but then after that, I had one scene in mind for my first Jake book, and that was it. I said, well, just write the scene and see what happens. Well, the whole story just started unfolding. So consequently, I don't outline anymore. And I
So
like
how
that
do you feel
discovery.
about that? I mean, it's a tightrope, isn't it, though? I mean,
Usually you get about 40,000 words in and you want to jump off a cliff.
okay.
And, but you do that
Right,
anyway,
little.
even with an outline. But I found out I created an outline and then I didn't follow it.
Yeah.
I would end up manipulating because I had other ideas. I didn't know the story yet. So this way you get to about 40 to 50,000 words into it and you say, okay, I got it now. I'm going to have to go back and move a few things around and alter a few things. But we're talking something you can do in a few hours because,
If you don't mind.
and fix the little things and now say,
Because-
okay, let's
because-
go finish the story.
Yes, yes, and that certain amount, that certain number of words in, whether it's 40,000 or 60,000,
Yeah.
when the little bell goes off in your head,
Right.
you think, that's what this is, my book
Yes.
about
Right.
Yeah.
redemption.
Because you spent a month telling yourself you don't know what you're doing and you're a fraud and people are going to laugh at you. But you're 14 years old again.
Do you have that too? That the
Yes.
moments of doubt.
Always. Always.
Oh, I don't think we ever get over that, unfortunately.
Mm-mm.
You
I'm
know,
working
I
on my
just-
26th book and the panic is coming.
Okay.
You always get to the middle and say, good Lord, this is a hot mess. But
Yeah.
then you keep going. You say, shut up, you idiot. You've been here before. Just keep writing. And you need another 10, 15,000 words in. You say, that's not so bad. And I know with a few things I can go back to make it even better. That kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah.
I have a new mantra now, which is I say embrace the panic, embrace the panic. And here's why. Just exactly as you were saying, Doug, how many times have we all done this? And how many times have we all worried?
Yep.
And it seems to work from time to time,
Yep.
right? So there's empirical evidence that we've done it.
Well, you mentioned Sue Grafton. She's once said her greatest fear was she would die and someone would find a first draft in her drawer.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh dear. But the thing is, every time we panic, what happens after the panic is
Mhm.
the solution.
Yes.
Every time.
Right.
So now when the panic comes, I say, oh, yay, I'm in the panic mode, which means the solution is just around the corner.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
that's really helpful.
Which is what happens to all your
That is
characters.
great.
There's that moment where the pressure builds and suddenly they say, aha, I know the answer now. And that's exactly what we go through.
Exactly.
Yeah, writing is definitely an interesting beast. And it's so interesting to me in talking to various authors, how similar our experiences really are
Yep.
in that process. It's just, and
Yep.
it just seems like it never gets easier.
Well, and it's funny because I said to my husband the other night, this is so difficult. This is just so difficult. And he looked at me like, yeah. And then I thought, well, I'm so silly. Of course it's difficult. If it's not difficult, I'm probably not working hard enough.
Yeah.
There are the days that we're in the zone. There's no question about that. There are
Right.
days that I'm typing so fast that I don't even know what it is. And I look at it later and I think, I wrote that? Huh, I don't really remember.
Mhm.
I love those moments.
Yes. Yes.
And,
Yes.
and you
Those are
can't
the
make them
best.
happen, can you? I mean, they're just,
No.
hmm.
I bet Michelangelo had the same thing halfway through that block of granite creating David. I shouldn't have chipped that off. I should have left that
Right.
piece there, But I mean,
That would be more difficult than writing, right?
exactly. How you
And
gonna
there
put
was
it
no
back?
super glue.
Exactly.
Well, Hank, it has been great to have you here, and we've got to
Absolutely.
have you back. And I'm so excited. Hank will be also teaching for the Outliers Writing University. You are an amazing woman. You've done so many things. I really, really look up to you. And this has just been a terrific time. We will have to have you back for another interview with your next book that's coming out. And, thank you so much. And
I have loved this. Outliers is amazing. It is such a marvelous project and absolutely a necessity for not only people who are beginning as writers, but people who are anywhere on the writing spectrum. I mean, we always need think of how many classes we've all been to. And think of how many times we've thought in a class, oh, I never thought about it that way.
Right.
I think people hear the thing they need to hear at the time
Yes.
they need to hear it.
Yes.
And
isn't that the
Outliers,
truth?
and Outliers can provide the opportunity for doing that on every level of writing. So I'm really honored and proud to be part of it.
Well,
Well, we're
thank
glad you are. We really, really are glad you are. Well, I mean, that wraps up this show. Get to know on the Outliers YouTube channel, but we'll be back with more fun interviews. So stay tuned.